Hello guys, welcome back. Do you think there will be any problem if we create a carousel using CSS only? Let's find out. This is New Dev, let's grow together. Alright guys, I just opened my favorite text editor, which is VS Code, so let's get started. And exclamation mark, hit enter, remove this meta tag, then title of carousel. Now let's link our CSS. Now let's give it a website icon for this because I love to, and remove the type attribute, this one, and the shortcut keyword there. Go with live server, you should be able to see an empty browser. There you go. Now inside of the body, main tag with class of carousel. Then here we're going to have input, input column radius times 3 because I want 3 of them. Then for the name attribute, they all should have the same value, so I'm just going to call it controls, and a unique ID, I1, I2, and I3. Let's break each input into a new line, and finally for my first input I will have the checked attribute to be checked at the beginning, like this. Okay, refresh. There you go. Now after that, let's go with dots, div, then label times 3 because I'm going to have 3 of them. This is going to be I1, I2, and I3 for the 4 attribute. Now let's break each label into a new line. So I1, I2, and I3. And finally here we're going to have a div with a carousel-images class. And inside of the 3 images, like so. Of course our images are looking gigantic, but don't worry about it. We can fix that by just saying image and then width at 500 pixels. Remember the default display property for the image HTML element is inline. That's why they are located next to each other. If I expand this window, you see, next to each other. And the default display property for the input radius is inline block. This is why they are positioning next to each other, each bullet. Alright. Okay, let's continue and target our label now. We go with the label. We can say width 24 pixels, height 24 pixels. To start with the dimension, let's go with cursor of pointer, then a position of relative, then display this as a block element. And now let's give it a background color in order for you to be able to see, which is going to be a dark gray, and a little bit of margin, 5 pixels in order to see. There you go. Now please PlayStation, because I'm going to just paste the following. Okay, and this is basically CSS Pseudo-selector, and this is the CSS sibling combinator. This is known as the tilde symbol. This is just a general sibling combinator. This basically says I'm targeting my first input. If it's checked, if it's checked, please target the next available element, which is dots. In the HTML structure, you can see that after any kind of input that I have is coming the dots, and then inside of that dot div, I want to target my first label. And I'm basically saying after that, please just change the background color. Now, if I click on this one and this one, you're able to see those changes, as well as inside of my input itself. But how is that possible? Well, that's thanks for the for and ID attribute. That's why they're linked to each other, because they must have the same value. That's the reason I call it I1 for the 4 element I1, I2, and so on. This is the reason that I'm able to do these changes across the label tag and also the input itself.
And you understood it? Yes. Impressive.
Let's carry on with the CSS. Now, for this part, I would like to start with my carousel images. So if I go to use my images, we'll say carousel-images. Let's give it a background color of wherever, it doesn't matter, to see the initial dimension of the div. There you go. After that, I would like to start with my body and remove the default value, default margin that the body has. So margin 0. There you go, no margin. After that, right here for my carousel images div, I would like to say display. This is a flex element to have my flex items next to each other, which is actually the images. Now, next I'm going to introduce you the logic here of how to create a carousel by using just CSS only. And there you go. Basically, we're following the same ideas we did right here. We are saying, okay, if my first input is check, please have or grab the whole div carousel and translate this a little bit to the left. Okay, those values are just for testing purposes, but now you will be able to see the logic working. This is the logic of the CSS carousel, or by creating a carousel by using just CSS.
The information in here is worth millions.
Okay, we can pull things up now. So if we go at the very top of my CSS, I would like to target the HTML, again the body, and finally the carousel itself, which is the main tag, and give it a high of 100% to start with. Now for my carousel images itself, this div, let's go with a width of 300 view width and a height at 100%, like so. There you go. Now I would like to make my image responsive, but before I do that, I would like to target my dots. So right here, say dots, and I would like to say position of absolute, which contains my labels. There you go. And then C index number 9, because I want it to be above of everything. There you go, right here. And after that, I would like to go above and target each input and say display none to get rid of those bullets. There you go, because I'm still able to apply the logic thanks to the label tag. Thanks for, to the label tag and for the for attribute. Okay, having said that, now let's make our images responsive. First of all, let me just remove this and grab this right here, because this is my container and I want to grab each image, close this curly braces, and let's get this started with max width 100%. Now let's go with the high of auto, should be so high auto, and finally object fit cover. This should make our images responsive, but partially it is, but not entirely, because if I expand this window, it's kind of responsive, but not at all. As you can see, it's missing some space right here. Right? Let's shrink this window again. Now, in order to fix this issue, we need to go back inside of our HTML now. First, we ought to remove our 8 images, HTML elements, all of them. So we're just going to comment this and then create new divs. I'm going to call it bg times 3, and this is going to be bg1, bg2, and bg3. Okay, just 3 divs inside of my carousel-images, like that. Now, if we go back inside of our CSS, and basically here, if I just remove this one now, if I go right here, again here, and uses CSS selector right here, so each div actually, my god, I'm grabbing each div, closing the curly braces, and basically say, so for each div, we should have a width of 100 view width to take full image, full width of the viewport, right? Is actually view width, semicolon, and then the height naturally should be 100% to start with. Now I need to target each background color with the image itself. So I already have them here, so just going to paste it to save us some time, and I just used the shorthand background property. This is background image, background repeat, background position, and background size. Now if I expand this window, if I shrink it, if I use this slide, you are able to see that it's already responsive, my images. There you go. This is how you make your images responsive, thanks to create a new div and apply the background property there. Tell me in the comments if you like what you've just seen. And okay, now let's go on and move with our CSS. just with the dots now. So these are our dots, our label tag. Let's go with display flex element. Now let's go with the background color for testing purposes, RGBA. Again, this is just for testing purposes, that background color. Now if I apply width, high, both of them 100%, and finally I can apply my next flex align items flex properties, which is align item flex to the end, per end. There you go. And now justify corner at the center, because if I scroll, there you go. This is just taking this dimension, this mile dots, taking this dimension. All right, then now we can remove this testing background color, and then let's carry on with the label tag. We need basically to apply the same logic, I mean just the same background color. So let me just paste this one here, comment this, and now we can give it a border radius of 50% in order to make it circular shape. There you go. And finally let's just give it a little bit margin bottom, so add this to my margin bottom, and this is going to have 1.8 rem to push it a little bit up. There you go. Now for this property here, I'm going to change this one. Instead of red, I would like to be a little bit wider if it's possible. I mean, if that word exists. It's a little bit wider, and the logic is still, working. However, I would like to change these values now. How? Well, since we applied 300, or actually for each div 100 view width, naturally I want to translate this into the view width units. So this is going to be minus, yes, 100 view width, and this one is going to be, yes, view width, but 200. Now if we give it a whirl, ta-da! There you go. We have a carousel now, and if already responsive. See? Great, you have a partial carousel, but what is missing here? Of course, a transition property. So if I shrink this window, go first of all inside of my label tag and apply a transition property, transition dot 3 seconds. This is transition duration. So if I click here, there you go. We are looking at smoothly transition. And now, if we go to the carousel image div itself, this one right here, let's remove this background. Now we can apply the transition. Now everything seems to look great because it's being already responsive. However, if I expand this,
Y sin dejar caer
By
una sola
string
gota de
span.
pintura que no sea. ¿Qué es eso?
there you go. I was hours trying to solve this, and naturally that the villian here is this transition property. Then I thought maybe I should add JavaScript to have more control of my carousel. Even I asked ChatGPT about it, and I said, I believe the carousel have more control if we do it with JavaScript, don't you think? And ChatGPT said, it did. Carousels created with JavaScript often provide more control and flexibility in terms of functionality and transitions, while CSS transitions can be used for simple carousel effects, as we did before. More complex carousel with smooth transitions, autoplay, and user interaction are typically achieved using JavaScript libraries or frameworks dedicated to building carousels, which we are not going to do. Because if I would have added JavaScript here in this little project, I would have missed the point of creating carousel using CSS only. Fortunately, I found another way. By the way, if you could solve this bug, this problem, please let me know in the comments below. Alright guys, in order for you to be able to see my changes that I'm going to make here, how we're going to take, first let me just create a style2.css, a new file for this, and here inside of my link I need to switch that to number 2, just like that. And we are not going to touch from here, from the carousel background 1 till this part that changes the background color of my label tag. So let me now remove my comments because we are not going to need them anymore. Great. Now, in order to start now above everything, let's go with my input and say display none to get rid of my bullets. Then my HTML should have the height 100%. Now for the body, I need to remove the default margin, so margin 0. Now I need to target my carousel images itself, then say position of relative, and finally say carousel images. Target each div, each inner div, and let's get this started with position of absolute. Now let's create a width 100%, but the height is going to be 100 view height for this part. There you go, those are my images. Let's get this started. The position top 0, left 0. Okay, and now initially I would like to have to each image the opacity value of none. And now of course I'm not able to see anything, but however, if I target my first background image, this one, and say initially to have the opacity of 1, now there you go. Now remember the logic that we apply here with the translate property. Basically we're going to do the same. So let me just grab this and paste it, and let me just expand this window in order for you to be able to see it. Now instead of targeting the carousel, the div itself, to apply the translate property, I'm going to target each background image, this one. So let me grab this and paste, and paste. This is going to be for number 2 and number 3. Remember, if my input number 1 is checked, please select the following element, which is carousel image, but inside of that carousel image I need to target my first background BG1, my first background image. But here, instead of the translate property, I'm going to change what? The opacity to 1. So basically it's going to be pretty much the same for everyone. So just gonna paste and paste. Now if I go right here inside of my bullets, ta-da, there you go, and is already responsive. If you can see, it's already responsive. However, we are missing just a little point here, just to give it a transition. So I can say transition name, which is going to transition animation opacity. That's going to change, delay, and the speed of my animation is in, and there you go. However, as you've seen, we have a little bug right there, because if I switch from here, you're able to see just for a little while the first image. See, the first image you're looking at. So in order to change that, we just need to comment this out, this opacity of 1. That's it. Why now is working? You see, now it's working. But how is that possible? That's thanks to the checked boolean attribute, because initially our first input is being checked, so this is working now. So I'm basically saying, okay, if my first input is checked, which is already is, thanks to the checked attribute right here, please select my first BG ground and set this to opacity 1. So from, where are you? From 0 to 1. And now you have an infinite carousel and is responsive. Okay guys, so in a nutshell, is it possible to do it with CSS only? Yes, but if you want to have more control, use JavaScript. And one last important thing here.
So, will it be Bachelorette number 1, Bachelorette number 2, or Bachelorette number 3? 1, 2, 3. Pick number 3, my lord. Oh, okay. Number 3. Lord Farquaad, you've chosen